mimi naenda kazi ya wananchi wa Kenya, kwa sababu najua nimechaguliwa kwa kazi gani.
Shida za Wakenya hazitatatuliwa Ujerumani. Shida za Wakenya hazitatatuliwa na hizi trip mingi unataka kwenda. Kitu ile tunataka kuona, ulituambia ukiweka Biblia chini utadili na sisi, uhakikishe maisha imekuwa rahisi.
Hii cartel mniwachie. Nikiweka tu Biblia Tuesday chini, mimi na wao.
Kumbe ulikuwa unaweka Biblia chini, uongeze bei la unga, uongeze bei la mafuta, uongeze school fees, ufinye wa Kenya na waanze kujigamba. Wakenya lazima tuamuke bana. Wakenya lazima tuamuke.
You cannot build an economy through taxation. You cannot build an economy through over-taxation of the poor.
When you find yourself in a hole, you first stop digging and figure out how to get out. And that is exactly what we have done. Tightening revenue collection, sealing leakages, making sure that every cent is collected to pay public debt.
Ruto utaharibu hii nchi yetu mzuri hivi tukiangalia.
To stimulate a stagnating economy, to stimulate an economy that is under recession, you need to put money in the people's pockets.
All those people who are criticizing President William Ruto, they need to be honest. Are they telling the president and the government not to honor the debts that we found? These are debts for the Republic of Kenya. Although they were not committed by the present administration, they were debts committed by the government of the Republic of Kenya then.
When President Kibaki came to power, he did not blame President Moi for anything.
Increasing taxes leads to lower collection. It has become real as Kenya Revenue Authority misses one revenue target after another.
Wananchi wa Kenya mjitayarishe. Huyu jamaa tarehe 12 mwezi wa 8 2027 atakuwa Sigoi akichuna mahindi.
Mambo ya kuchaguliwa ni bahati ya Mungu na wananchi wa Kenya. Kazi yangu sio kupanga vile nitachaguliwa tena. Hiyo bana kazi yangu. Kazi yangu ni kupanga vile vijana watapata kazi, vile tutahakikisha kwamba kuna hospitali ambayo inafanya kazi na vile Kenya itabadilika. That is the focus.
The biggest problem in Kenya is corruption. And the current government is encouraging corruption instead of fighting corruption.
We are going to have a good discussion. We are putting the figures into place, who took what and where, so that the people of Kenya can know. To be fair to everybody, how do people expect a government to fix a 10-year mess in 1 year?
It is high time that the Ruto crowd should stop blaming others.
Tuache siasa duni na porojo ndogo ndogo.
Mtu akishindwa njia ya kufanya kitu yake, sijui serikali iliyopita. Sasa kesho yake mtasema hata watoto wakikataa ama mama akikataa kuzaa, unajua uhuru.
EACC, DCI, please, for you to deal with corruption and economic crimes, hire professionals in every field as your investigators.
The EU remains one of our most important trading allies, accounting for more than 1/5 of Kenya's global export. New and renewed international conflict and wars, as witnessed most recently in Ukraine, Israel, and Gaza, the Sahel, the Sudan, Somalia, the DRC, creating widespread human suffering and deepening divisions in a period where global collaboration and unity are of paramount importance. As we navigate a new era of global interdependence, this needs to evolve into a reciprocal relationship, a shift towards a more balanced and equitable global partnership with the deliberate transfer of technologies and intentional flow of capital to the global south.
All right, a lot of those conversations around the referendum and, of course, the cost of living, if you would have cared just to listen keenly, pointing to also 2027. And ready for round two. This is what the referendum boxers actually looking like national dialogue report that it was concluded. So are we really batting our heads on the wall as far as the national dialogue report is concerned? A lot of money has been expended on that. We had previously people complaining and raising questions regarding the funding of this particular report. We had even some of the legislators saying that this is being funded by some NGOs. At the end of the day, they had to create a law so that it could actually be coming or being steamrolled from the exchequer. This is what Victor has drawn today. Are you ready for round 2 referendum? Are we batting our heads on the wall? And Floods is with us. We risk going to jail. CS Murkomen has said that walking, living or driving in floods will be considered attempted suicide. Right? And this is the reality of what we are facing right now with the El Nino effects, according to Stano. And I protest, but I accept anyway. The double speak of Right Honorable Raila Odinga as far as the National Dialogue Report is concerned, which way to go? I protest, but I accept anyway. And that is the office of the opposition that the National Dialogue has also, the National Dialogue Report has indicated that that has been agreed upon. That is the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the office of the official opposition leader, as it were. And you can see the Daily is also holding on this today, looking at what we do have on the front page of the Star. Why Ruto allies reject Raila calls for referendum. Azimio chief calls for vote. President disapproves use of taxpayers' billions. And experts say 5 key proposals require public vote. Will there be a plebiscite? Do we need one? This is the rebirth of BBI, referendum. Ruto allies tell of Raila. Excuse me. ODM chief demanded that the people's input on offices of opposition leader and the prime CS, as I mentioned. You can read that also inside page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. And this was all about also the Hustler Fund. But even as the president says the cost of living has gone down, the opposition holds a different view. As Mayor Leader Raila Odinga has described the Kenya Kwanza as sick but does not want treatment. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka explained how the Kenya Kwanza side of the national dialogue talks was adamant on reviewing taxes and levies that have pushed the cost of fuel higher. The leader spoke in Mwala during the burial ceremony of Phyllis Mawathe, that is Phyllis Mawathe, mother to Embakasi South MP Julius Mawathe.
Ile hatukukubaliana tukaweka wazi. Sisi wanaazimio la umoja One Kenya ni juu ya gharama ya maisha. Imeenda juu zaidi. Juu zaidi. Na kwa hivyo kama mtu anaweza kusema ati imeenda chini, hii nadhani I was thinking, Mheshimiwa Sifuna, it must mean that this bottom up thing means you actually unaenda kichwa chini, therefore you don't think properly na miguu juu. I can't understand how else inaweza kuwa gharama imeenda chini. Because kama kichwa kiko pande hii and you are upside down, maybe bottom up means upside down.
Sisi tulikuwa na mambo yetu, wao walikuwa na mambo yao. Wameongea hii tumepata, hii tumepata, hii tumepata, imebaki moja muhimu zaidi, gharama ya maisha kwa wananchi. Ndio tulisema vile vile tutatue. Wakakataa. Kata haiwezekani. Kata haiwezekani. Sasa Kalonzo akaniuliza, tufanye nini? Jamaa wamekataa hii. Nikamwambia Kalonzo, wewe wachana hao. Jamaa ni wagonjwa. Si wagonjwa. Unajaribu kumpatia dawa na hataki. Najua yeye anaugua. Si atakufa. Wacha yeye akufe tu.
All right, we just want to look at that, which way to go with the referendum calls right now. We were here just, I think this is a deja vu, and there was a report, now there's another report, and the question is, what is the way forward? Let's just begin with you, Dr. Martinolo.
Dibal, I want to go back where we began. When this process began, I think I must have been with the two of these brothers of mine, except Professor, and I said that this national dialogue is a total waste of time. Nothing is going to come out of it. I'm so glad that I can sit here after that to say precisely what I say. And what it does is that it only gives us a glimpse of, again, how both sides of this divide miss it out. So when I listen to Azimio people, in the first instance, how would you want to go and tell people who have the government, how would you want to go and tell them how to reduce the cost of living? Why don't you let their business run, and if it gives them the benefit of the cost of living going down, so be it. If it doesn't, how do you want to sit with them and tell them this is how to reduce the cost of living? That doesn't make sense. Two, there are issues in that report that have since been released that are very unconstitutional and are unlikely to even see the light of day. For example, you want to entrench the post of the Prime Minister, the Prime Cabinet Secretary in the Constitution. You want to entrench the position of a leader of opposition in the Constitution. Under what limb? Because the representation or design in the architecture of the Constitution is very clear in the sense that it does not anticipate a leader of opposition. So under what limb are you going to tinker with the Constitution and introduce it in there? The executive is also well defined in the Constitution, and therefore there is no even one cabinet secretary position that is defined in that Constitution. So how would you now want to define one cabinet position called Prime Cabinet Secretary? It is unthinkable that you can sit somewhere, spend government money, and bring us something that will not see the light of day, which is that we want to entrench the leader of opposition. And then the former Prime Minister is very enthusiastic that, yeah, we want it. Under what? What is the understanding of philosophical basis of our Constitution? It appears he does not understand it. And therefore, he is playing politics of expediency in between here and not necessarily giving us anything that is of a principle in nature. So basically, we are back to where we are. Musical chairs. This report will take us nowhere. We are unlikely to have a draft bill that will see itself in Parliament, and if it does, there is court process as well, which again the same will be subjected to. Just like the BBI process, we see anything unconstitutional being struck out in the same manner.
Mm-hmm. So as a country, we never learn. We are none the wiser with these events. We just let them be, and then they'll come and carry on with this particular exercise. Are they pulling wool over our own eyes that, maybe some deals somewhere have been made, and this was just for the public gallery, to just go through the processes, that something is happening as far as the cost of living. But politically, on the back channels, things have been sorted out. Are we reading something more subtle into it? And is this the death knell of the National Dialogue Committee? Let's hear from Kipruto.
Well, you have skipped it, Professor, but it's as well.
Okay, let's go.
It's as well. It's as well. Let me say the following. For me, any discussion among brothers is very useful, because as somebody who has dealt with conflict resolution, both in Somalia and in class, I do understand that when people are talking, something is bound to come out. It may not be what they intended to achieve, but there is certain byproduct. That byproduct may be more important than even the original intentions. My take about this dialogue, it's been useful even up to now, but hidden therein is the fact that President Ruto knew how BBI failed, and he went the same route, knowing that he wanted to fail this process. But it's unfortunate that some of my colleagues on the Azimio side never saw that President Ruto never intended to take this issue anywhere. But something that I say, there's a silver lining in it, is that we've discussed, we've distilled the issues, we've known what is bedeviling our society. And as I've said before, it would be important for us to think not about now, but how to midwife this process so that we have a constitution that is organic to Kenyans. Because I still believe, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, and I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of imagination, but I've been a practicing politician now over 35 years. 20 in parliament and 15 out of parliament, but still active in political space. And I have a feeling that this constitution is not what Kenyans intended to give to themselves. There are certain challenges in this constitution that does not address some of our basic understanding. Because our basic understanding is that our society is a society that is deficit of trust. Why do we make a big constitution compared to the American one, which you can go through in half an hour? Ours, we made it impossible for anybody to understand this constitution, unlike the 1963 constitution, which was simpler, because that Kenyans trusted themselves. But today, Kenyans don't trust themselves, and that's why for every problem, they say we are taking a lot to parliament. For every problem, they say we have to amend the constitution. My take is, let's look at this constitution, let's discuss it. Also, once we have certain recommendations, let us freeze them so that it doesn't look that it is about today. Freeze them, deal with it in the next election. The official leader of opposition may emerge to be the current president or any other individual in that particular political space, depending on who comes number 2. If he comes number 2, then he becomes the official leader of opposition. But any government in power or any administration in power does not like a referendum. And that's why Ruto allies are saying we don't want a referendum, because a referendum shakes the foundation of a nation. And there is no way this document can go through without a referendum. And there lies the mischief, that the president knew there was nothing, but he thought he would have enough time in the intervening period to sort out some of the problems, which, with the fullness of time, we have realized is totally incapable of sorting out any single problem that he either inherited or created in office.
All right, let's hear from Professor Gitil Naitoli. Sorry, I jumped you.
Yes, first I think we are arguing as if the proposals to entrench the office of the cabinet secretary, I mean, it's going to what? Prime into constitution or the opposition or the office of the leader opposition. We are arguing as if those who are Simeo proposals, they were not. Those are William Ruto proposals. Now he even wrote a letter to Parliament before the dialogue started. But having said that, is I want to agree with both my colleagues here that William knew that the structure of government is clearly defined. He's the president, the deputy president, the attorney general, and not less than 14, and not more than 22 cabinet secretaries. Where do you insert the prime minister there? Because to do that, you need a referendum. The office, the leader of the opposition, again, the office of leader of opposition, the constitution is also very clear about the parliamentary leadership. It is the speaker, the deputy speaker, the majority leader, the minority leader, the whips, and the deputies. Where again are you supposed to put the office of the leader of the opposition? So he knew those things would require a referendum. And I want to agree with you that they have a right to reject the referendum because they can win it, given the climate that we are. Now, the dialogue was useful, if you ask me, because I've read it and I've seen they have clarified in 2 areas. The constitution, this constitution, is very clear on transmission of presidential results, electoral results. It says that the constitution, forget about the Maina Gay ruling, because the Maina Gay ruling actually buttressed one section of this constitution, that the result will be announced by the presiding officer at the polling station, and then collated and promptly announced by the returning officer at the constituency. So the result that should go to Nairobi is a result from the constituency, not necessarily from the polling stations, which is what we have done in order to create, servers and all those things. That they have clarified that in this report. So it was useful in that respect. The other thing, that one is what I pick as a serious clarification.
They have clarified the constitution, or they have only repeated what the constitution
or they have repeated now. They have created clarity. Okay.
The law is never clear.
So now the other thing I wanted to say is, first I want to agree with the UNDA people who are saying that rejecting Raila's proposal, because they have a right to do. They know they cannot win any referendum right now. They can't. Even if election is only today, I know they will lose. But the other thing I wanted to say is that sometimes it shocks me about the type of leaders we have and about the Kenyans themselves. Because this mantra about the other government, the previous administration, I have no idea where it comes from. You have the president, who was the deputy for 10 years. You have Kimani Ichung'wah, the majority leader in the parliament, who was the budget committee chairman for 8 years. You have Anthony Nduale, who was a majority leader in parliament for 8 years. So which is the other government are we really discussing when these people tell us the previous, which one? This is a continuation of Jubilee. Jubilee did not perform. Jubilee are overpromised and under-delivered. This government has also failed because it was a continuation of Jubilee. It's just the Kenyans who are unable to see that we are just re-electing in Jubilee. And that is exactly what we did. We should not have done it, given that we were able to audit the Jubilee performance. Okay? So, I mean, when you look at all this, and then they repeat this because they think the Kenyans are incapable of reasoned evaluation of the statement that is coming from the state, because I'm looking what the deputy president was saying here, what the president is saying here. Okay? We don't have a previous administration in this country. What we have is the continuation of the Jubilee administration. It was unfortunate that the separation was attempted, and the opposition was basically unable to explain to the country that we are simply electing the same government. So I would support the discussion, like my brother here said, that wherever people talk, because even the good book says, come, let's reason it together. They may have product which is not implementable clearly, but at least there is some knowledge that has emerged. So in the next level, because I believe what they had to do, if they wanted to sort out our current mess, maybe spread the power a little bit, was simply to get the Naivasha document, committee of experts document. Yes. The one which was rejected in Naivasha in the way of our presidential system, they should have gotten that one and presented it to us. So they failed to bite the bullet. And therefore they have a report which, if they attempt to implement it, they will still go to court. And these courts, I can assure you, they will still defend the basic structure of this constitution. So the other thing I wanted to say, this document is very good. The fact that we are unable to implement it properly does not make it a poor document.
Let's hear from Professor Ogela. He's been amazingly patient, can see. You can weigh in as well. Thank you.
So, Deval, there is something that I'm supposed just to mention from the previous segment, that because they spend a lot of time criticizing my point, you must give alternative when you offer a solution. For example, the issue of telling people that parents are not being parental, but they have to look for food. You must always give alternative. You can't tell a child, don't play with glasses, and there's no football. Now, going to this thing of bipartisan talks, the only thing that bipartisan talks has achieved for me is ceasefire, to get Azimio out of the street, because economic situation cannot be solved by being on the street. I believe so strongly, and Kenyans need to know that we cannot use a wrong tool that can bring a solution, because anytime you go to the street, the economy is suffering. So Raila Odinga has to know that we have done the first liberation in violence, was successful. The second liberation in violence was successful. The third liberation is economic liberation. It cannot happen in an environment where there is no peace. So please, let us work with peace. Anything else can only work after peace has been there. And I ask Kenyans, please, let's be peaceful. Let's even take a covenant that we will never, ever even go to the street anyway. because we have discovered that it is not giving the results as you said. Now, talking to the issue of the economy, like you hear Kenya Kwanza talking, according to me, this is akin to going to a certain town using the wrong map. Kenya Kwanza entered government with the wrong map called bottom up, because bottom up as economic model does not exist anywhere. It's never been published by any publishing book. There is no author. Tell me who is the author of Kenya bottom up economic model. Economic models like, for example, the Solomonic economic model here, you can see it's been published by CC Africa. The author is Professor Fred Ogola. Tell me, for that Kenya Kwanza thing called bottom up, who was publishing? Is it David Ndii who published it? Was it published in State House? Is State House a publishing company? So we have to really understand that you cannot go to another city using the wrong map. Maybe by sheer luck, but that's only possible in faith, not in science. Then for me, the issue of leadership, there's a leadership crisis in Kenya at the moment, and I'm very serious about it. Because the current government, as you said, Senior Kirwa, is incapable. Even if you give them 1 million years to solve the economic situation, they can't. And then the opposition also has lost leadership. Why am I trying to say so? These guys, when you hear Kalonzo speaking as if he has a silver bullet to solve Kenyan economic situation, in Kibaki's government, when I was Kibaki's economic and strategic advisor, Kalonzo Musyoka was the vice president. Raila Odinga was a prime minister. All these guys were in government. Musalia Mudavadi was a minister, a deputy prime minister. Uhuru was there as a deputy prime minister. Wetangula was there. All these guys since 1992 have been there. And Debal, sorry to tell me, I've never seen any transformation which has been done outside between 25 years and 55. Michael X, bring him on board. Martin Luther King. Mandela started. I'm telling you, these people just need to go away and let us rebirth a new Kenya. For me, there's a leadership crisis from either side because they can't. And then the NADCO report, for me, I can tell you, when Kenyans are waiting for NADCO report to solve the economic issue, this was pretentious. Linda Jami put a petition and said, a memorandum and said that before you continue with this thing, first, withdraw the Finance Act. 2, Treasury must sit in the committee discussing about the economic situation. Tell me who was an economic expert in the Kenya Kwanza team and Azimio team. The technical team were lawyers who we know cannot solve the economic issue, and there were politicians who are good in economic, let's say, communication strategists. There were never economic expertise. Without economic expertise that you need economic formula, it can't. I saw the NADCO team trying to meet Professor Njuguna much later after they have finished work to put that in addendum. It cannot be, you cannot put economic situation as an appendix of the report. According to me, there was no intention. And on the other part of Raila Odinga, I said live on KTN that Raila Odinga is a poor boardroom negotiator. Boardroom negotiator, let me repeat the bedroom thing, I don't know.
It's the enterprise thing.
I said Raila Odinga is a poor boardroom negotiator. And as an economist, let me use facts, isn't it? Raila negotiated with Moi, MOU, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Moi got the better end of the stick.
Cooperation, it was cooperation.
Yes. Then they went to negotiate with Kibaki. It was Nusumkati. Kibaki got a better Nusumkati. When they went and negotiated the handshake with Uhuru, Uhuru got a better hand of the handshake. Now with Ruto, Ruto is getting a better hand of the handshake. And in God we trust. Let's just bring data. Raila has a lot of power, social power, street power. This give to him. Boardroom is not his. And for me, them coming to cry again in a funeral when they had a boardroom to win from, this simply means was a bad strategy. I told Raila Odinga as a friend, as his son, please put Martha Karua in that boardroom. Martha Karua won for Kibaki against you. Now you put Kalonzo, who was on your side when Martha Karua won against you. It's a misnomer. Martha Karua could have done for you the boardroom, the legal side, the political side. Martha Karua could not give you votes in her constituency, but that woman gave it to her. The iron woman in that boardroom could have given Raila something which can work. And I can tell you very well, that the creation of these offices, if they try to do, Linda Jamu will go to court, will challenge it because the illegalities that is in report, I even wonder it was supposed to be discussed by people who are parliamentarians. And the last point I have, this report is so pedestrian. In the history of Kenya, this is the most pedestrian report we have ever seen. And I have facts here. There is nothing new this report told us before they search. For example, they said one of the terms of reference was to discuss about the issue of IBC, isn't it? Then they come and see, let us audit IBC. But that was the report. You cannot sit in Bomas for all those months to tell us nothing new. I do not see any stock of genius that was sitting there. Even if you say that it's good about, they just repeated, regurgitated what we know. Nothing new. Kalonzo Musyoka saying that Ichungwa, with all these teams with technical expertise, given even researchers with them, given the money we spend there, for me, it is not consummate. Raila Odinga should allow the government to run, isn't it? And then wait for 2027, prepare properly for an election in 2027, and see whether they can do anything.
Right. Can I say this about the bottom up? I think Ruto had a good idea. The problem is the interpretation of this idea. Because when I look at William Ruto and his policies, you'll be excused if you thought Uhuru was a communist. This is what bottom up should have been. Remove cartels from the food sector. Remove cartels from education. Remove cartels from wealth. You do those three things, you deliver bottom up. Because you are taking care of the most vulnerable people in society. They did not do that. They went and decided to allow the country to become a client state of the IMF and the World Bank, which is what Americans always like to do. They don't like a strong African country, because to control you, they needed to bring you down. So the issue they are talking about, the debt, and all this is just an excuse of handing us over to the management of the people we don't elect, we did not elect, the IMF and the World Bank.
Mm-hmm. Right. Let's hear from, first of all, from Dr. Martin Olo. Do you agree with the fact that, first of all, this was a political class negotiation? It's not really for the common mwananchi, because ultimately we can see it's not really about the cost of living, but these two offices that now want to be officiated and installed into the constitution. And Kenyans know more work, if I may use the latest lexicon that is coming to the public domain, in seeing and through the lies that actually were being taken through and peddled around, especially with these dialogues. How then do we stop the political class taking advantage of the citizens when we create a crisis and use the chaos theory so that we can actually try and make sure we benefit from the chaos theory? And it's not about the mwananchi, but it's about you. Given the epic of times that we've seen this happening from different administration with the same results, why are we none the wiser?
You see, we are wiser depending on who you are saying is wiser, because the political class remains wise. They know when their interests are threatened, they know how to coalesce and come together. And that's why I was saying I have no time for a dialogue whose outcome we know, whose intentions we know, which is, the reason why you're making noise is that you don't have anything in your mouth. You should have that one come. Let's have a conversation here so that you cool the tempers, you cool the demonstrations and so on. So the elite capture of our political, the elite capture of our political culture is such that whenever their interests are threatened, they will always come together and agree. So Raila is a threat to Ruto's presidency. What do we do? Just dangle a few things around him, and then he comes actually on the TV and says, yeah, the report is good. And all of us with naked eyes cannot see anything good about that report. And there I agree with the professor that there's nothing earth-shattering or no new ground broken. If they come and give you an old and tired thing like, let us expand the selection committee or panel of IBC to 9, which means the same regional lords, that the regional lords should come, so that we get how many commissioners? 5 or 9. so that each lord brings a commissioner. I mean, how does that improve elections? How does it improve the management of the electoral process? The solutions we come along with are the tired solutions where we want to look at the provinces, we want to look at the regions. We are not looking at competence. So yes, this report, and indeed the charade around it, is reminiscent of our elite capture of our politics. Small wonder that they can come out of that and start telling us about state capture. Now, if you start talking about state capture, who else would you be talking about? Because you'll be talking about the same guys capturing us captives, making us their captives in terms of peddling their whims. I would challenge Raila Odinga to tell me, so what is this about leader of opposition that you think is important for Kenyans? How does that improve the Kenyans' lives? I mean, it can't possibly be. And indeed, as you said, it was the ideas that the president first wrote when he took over and said, look, this is what I want, this is what I want. Again, even from that penning, the fact that he's the one who penned the ideas to the National Assembly, is the very argument that was being used against Uhuru's involvement in the BBI process. So if you tell me that these ideas are parliamentary led, we will tell you no. It is the executive and the elite that have propagated these ideas. So at the end of the day, again, it will be subject to the court's interpretation. So my take of all this thing is that, and I hear when my colleagues say that talking is important, dialogue is important, that's fine. But you don't talk when you know what your result is. You don't talk when you know your intentions is to hoodwink Kenyans. When you know is your intentions to throw a little bit of sand in our faces so that we can sleep a little bit, and then you pass a few things. I say this of BBI, that it was so underwhelming when we spent so much money and came up with such a cavalier report in BBI. Same. What is it? What are they saying new? Zero. Same tired, beaten statements around our cohesion, our politics, our ethnicity and so on. We will not grow in that manner. We will only grow radically. Now, a little bit on this bottom-up thing. The bottom-up concept means a lot if you look at it. In terms of economics and budgeting, it means zero budgeting. It means you come down to the bottom and build up your budget upwards by factoring in aspects that then take care of the various circumstances that you want. Now, whether you remove cartels or whatever you do, unless you say, let's get down to the basic, dismantle the budgeting structure, which, as we know today, it is what you call in public policy an incrementalist approach, so that you only increase on what there is and not necessarily overhaul it. So you go to the ministry, it's intact. You're only adding maybe 30%. You go to every sector you go to in terms of budgeting, it's just you're adding on what there is, you're not reconstructing it. So that you're not opening up education and asking, okay, let's start from primary. Let's start from what is it?
You raise a good point, because also the approach of the policy implementation has to be questioned. You talk about the incrementalism model, right? You build from the previous regime, but we see also with the current administration, it has been the garbage and can model. You take it, you garbage it, you can it, from the previous administration, all those policies from the housing, from the agricultural sector, you can it as well. And this we lose also with the institutional memory that really comes with the incremental sort of a policy build-up or the policy process itself. But we'll come back to that.
Let's come back to that, though, what I want to say.
Yeah, because when we come with the different, and this has been happening with every administration, even on the county level, that the governor will come, you will outface the entire, secretariat, so to speak, or the working class within your county. You again go back to the public service boards to make sure you recruit fresh ones.
But so that I don't let this slip, because what you're saying is slightly different from what I'm saying. Because you see, when a governor comes into power, they are at liberty to bring certain cadres of employees. Similarly to the executive, when it comes to it is at liberty to bring certain cadre. But essentially the civil service remains the same. But when you talk about a bottom-up approach, the assumption was that you're actually going to
to invest in certain specific sectors.
Okay.
But I leave
Okay.
it now.
Let me come to Kipruto Rapkirwa and ask the question about our country maybe being in this paralysis of analysis syndrome. And this is where we are stuck at as a country. We overbrain things. We set up committees, we set up task forces, and we remain with just the reports. We never move on and we never learn from them. How can we break from this cycle? Because this is, and you'll find out, we'll actually go the same way. Come 5 years after this, we'll have another report. We'll have another constitution or a constitution of a committee who will try and analyze that previous election that we'll have gone through. But how can we save ourselves from this sort of paralysis of analysis that we are in? First of all, do you agree with that assessment, or maybe it is far-fetched? May any of you?
The answer is outside there with Kenyans. As long as Kenyans allow themselves to be pigeonholed into enclaves of political discourse, they are likely to run the risk of electing another team of cartels. While I do appreciate William Ruto wanted to remove the cartels, he forgot that it is the cartels who took him to office through the funding process. And therefore, you are removing cartels from the other team, replacing them with your own cartels. And because these cartels, their prime motive is to make more money, because they gave you money not because you are the most qualified person, but they knew they are likely to work with you for purposes of enhancing their revenue collection. They did what they are doing, what they are doing, because they had no intention of making it better for Kenyans. They wanted to make it better for themselves. That is my worry. And therefore, as long as Kenyans are going to listen to us, the politicians, or those who are budding politicians like Martin Olo, they are likely not to get the answer, because the answer in Africa is that our main problem is lack of leadership. It is not about the most qualified people. It's not about it's not about the fertility of our soil. It is lack of leadership. And this has been made worse by the fact that we created a class society where we are saying there are those who are called hustlers and those who are called dynasties. While William Ruto has now graduated from a hustler to a dynasty himself and created more dynasties, the hustler has been left in abeyance. He does not know what to do. The bottom-up idea was brilliant and is still brilliant, but I don't think the administration of the day intended to do that. They just wanted to use it as a rallying call for gaining traction on the ground and getting the votes. Once they got the votes, they forgo the hustler, and that is where we are today. My worry, and this is something that still worries me, is that Kenyans are still trusting in the same people who are not worth an iota of trust. They are not worth even listening to them, because this administration has totally failed. Finally, let me say this. Those who have not gotten into politics, like my three colleagues, they are very unkind to politicians. We politicians, we respond to the dynamics of society. At times, you go to the constituency. When I had a constituency to represent, and you have an agenda, and that agenda is taken over by how people will behave one Saturday morning. They will come, take over your meeting, and deal with you the way they want, and because you don't want to offend anybody, you go by their wishes. At times you intended to go for Arambe, and you had carried 50,000. By 11 o'clock, you hardly have even 1,000 shillings. And those days there was no Fuliza, there was no M-Pesa, and therefore you ran the risk of not attending the Arambe you wanted to attend. This society of ours, not a single Kenyan is not corrupt. Because once you get into office, like those of us who have occupied that space, they expect you to drive the best vehicles, they expect you to live in the most luxurious place in town, they expect you to have an helicopter somewhere. And these are imaginations of people. If they realize that you are driving the car like that of Dibal, they say, what did you do for yourself when you are in office? Because the office has a certain salary.
So are you telling the public that my car is not the finest, that is dilapidated? Where am I doing in office?
No, because you have earned it. But the people expect politicians not to earn what they have. And that's, at times I feel we are unfair to ourselves as Kenyans.
There's
Because
so much expectation.
There's so much expectation
Indeed.
from a politician. He's not a magician. He's just a human being. You've given him a job for 5 years. And therefore, you don't expect any miracle out of this.
No, let me go to sequentially.
You cannot use sports. But let him clear the air.
Yes. I think he is entirely wrong. Because you asked a fundamental question.
Not entirely. You see, Prof, English.
Maybe not. But this is it. This is what we have done.
Academic humility.
As a society. We have overproduced.
I like academic humility. Intellectual humility.
We have overproduced what is called hunters and gatherers, and labeled them as leaders. Because there are two distinct types of leaders. The one he has described, these are hunters and gatherers. They hunt, they gather. We need the farmer leader, because the farmer multiplies. So we don't have a leader whose genuine intention is to multiply what they find. This is why we're even selling assets. We promised to create jobs. You can create jobs and turn around and sell assets instead of multiplying those assets. So my friend, the fact that we have hunters and gatherers as our leaders is not the problem of the citizen. Because the leader is supposed to make life better for the people he leads. So we just the leadership class we have created is hunters and gatherers class.
You know, Dibal, allow me also to say something. I agree with him, but the problem is he never listened to me through. I say the basic problem in Kenya is our own society. We elect people without discerning their intentions. Prof here may have the best intentions for Kenyans, but we'll never listen to him because he does not have the convoy that other guys will have. He does not have the capacity to mobilize enough guys to cause trouble. Because you see, at times when you hear trouble in political parties, it's actually meant to raise the presence of that particular political arrangement. So he does not have enough resources to cause trouble. And without trouble, he will not be heard. He may have the best ideas for Kenya, but who will hear him? So the problem is we are telling Kenyans.
This is the chaos,
can you be more
theory that I was saying.
Chaos. You cause chaos for you to be noticed. To be around, to be in town. Otherwise, without chaos, nobody will understand. You see, like at times when I go to my home, my former my constituency, they ask me, where have you been? Because I don't cause trouble. I come here, we talk nice things, and we go home. They don't hear us. But if I was to cause trouble in the studio, next week, I'll be having a big crowd at home.
Right. I heard from one of the legislators, of course, when you are going for the campaigns, using the chaos theory, that you make sure you go to the local town there and buy, most of the bartenders beers throughout the night. And of course tell them, as you're going home, make sure the only name that you will be calling out is Fred Ogola. Fred Ogola. Fred Ogola. So you cause chaos in the whole village at night so that they may hear just the name Fred Ogola. And that is just a way of branding and marketing yourself.
That's good information for an economist. He thinks that people are rational. No. They're irrational. So just let them shout.
All right, Fred, we want to take a short break, but these issues that is being raised, I wanted just to show this particular picture, that even when the economy is really tanking, we have